अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Nityanandam. In this episode, Swamiji introduces the Brahma Sutra, Sutra 14 to be precise, and this is a debate between Vyasa, the originator of the Brahma Sutras, and the Bhashyakara, Adi Shankara, who is probably the revival, was taken up the task of reviving Hinduism as a religion and as a tradition to the world. He has literally revived it by establishing several processes and monasteries and all that. So in this episode, the discussion that Swamiji gives us is more than the interpretation, but is actually a cosmic revelation that Swamiji got as a direct download from the cosmic archives. So please enjoy this episode. Nityanandam, this is Sarvaishwarananda signing off.
So our mission today is, well, it's an exploration of some really high-stakes philosophy.
It really is.
We're diving into a deep, a really subtle discussion about the Brahma Sutras, specifically Chapter 1, Section 1, Sutra 14.
And this is such a critical piece of the whole structure. We're lucky because our source material claims to reveal the actual thought exchange between two absolute giants.
Adi Shankara and Vyasa.
Exactly. Shankara, the great commentator, the Bhashyakara, and Vyasa, also known as Badarayana, who was the Sutrakara, the original creator.
And these sources, I mean, they're not just some academic paper. They give us this unique insight, almost like a cosmic reading of the conversation itself.
That's a good way to put it. It wasn't some, confrontational debate. It was a really powerful, sweet, but highly intellectual exchange.
Like chatting over coffee, if your coffee break determined your lifespan.
Right. I mean, the context is just incredible. You have Vyasa, the originator of the aphorisms, coming down specifically to check the philosophical rigor of Shankara, the one commenting on his work.
And the result of this checkup, after the discussion, Vyasa, realizing just how strong Shankara's thinking was, apparently blessed him with 16 more years of life.
Yes. His intellectual strength literally extended his longevity.
So for this deep dive, we're really going to focus on decoding the core concepts that drove their respectful disagreement.
It's all about the relationship between bliss and abundance, what Maya really means in this context. And this is the big one, the ultimate connection between Dharma and Moksha.
Right. Action and ultimate liberation. This is basically a blueprint for how existence is structured.
It is.
Okay, let's get into it. The debate kicks off with Sutra 14, which sets up a basic premise. Bliss is the cause, and abundance is the effect.
And that cause and effect idea is the trigger for the whole thing. Shankara, in his interpretation, immediately says, okay, if abundance is the effect, then it must be considered Maya.
And we should probably anchor that term Maya for everyone listening. It often gets translated as just illusion, but it's so much more nuanced than that, especially here.
Oh, absolutely. It's not that abundance doesn't exist. For Shankara, it's about limitation or measurement. Bliss is infinite, unmeasurable. Abundance, even though it's vast, is ultimately finite. It's measurable.
So Maya is the principle that allows the unmanifest infinite bliss to appear as the manifest measurable world.
Precisely. And this is exactly where Vyasa pushes back. Hard.
With the logic of causality.
Yes. He says, look, if abundance is the direct effect of bliss of Brahman, the ultimate cause, how can the effect possibly have a quality that's different from the cause?
If the cause is non-dual, the effect can't suddenly become illusory.
Exactly. Vyasa's worry here is actually very practical. He points out that if you use the word Maya, the average person is going to think the world, abundance, is something other than Brahman. And that belief creates a huge philosophical problem, a chasm.
And Shankara, being the logician he is, he refines his position.
He does. He says, no, the attribution of it being something other than Brahman, that is Maya. That's what Maya does. But he insists that in reality, bliss and abundance can't be separated. You can't have one without the other.
So one is the measureless and the other is the measurement, but they're completely intertwined.
Correct. And this leads them down a brief but really critical side path about action and inaction.
Okay.
Vyasa makes the point that action and inaction exist in the same person. You're the same being, whether you're active or silent. The action doesn't fundamentally change who you are.
But Shankara counters that, doesn't he? He says the action itself expresses the intensity of the person.
Right. He asks, how can two different states, action and inaction, represent the same essence without some serious qualification?
It's a subtle point, like a great musician.
That's a perfect analogy.
When she's sitting silently, her essence is still musician. But when she plays, the action expresses the intensity and the skill of that essence. The doing tells you something more about the being.
Exactly. And that subtle gap, that difference between the essence and its intense expression, that's the bridge to their main disagreement.
The relationship between Dharma and Moksha.
Yes. Vyasa tries to draw a direct line. He says the personality in stillness is in Moksha, and when that same personality acts, it's demonstrating Dharma. So they must be one and the same.
But Shankara sees a really crucial separation there, one that he thinks is vital for anyone on the path.
For him, Moksha is the source, the essence. He even defines it as pure, unconditional love. But Dharma is the flow of that love out into the world.
So it's one step removed from the source.
One step removed, and this is where he gives a very serious warning. He says, for our common understanding, we can't just equate them, because the flow is always affected by time and space.
And he says any Dharma that doesn't constantly upgrade itself.
Yes, any Dharma that gets rigid or stuck, it stops leading you to Moksha.
So the goal, Moksha, is constant, but the path, Dharma, has to be dynamic. It has to evolve.
It has to. But Vyasa challenges this whole separation with another analogy, the river and the water.
Okay.
He says the source and the flow are one and the same. You can't separate the water in the river from the spring it came from. Even if we use different words, dharma, moksha, kama, the original flow is singular.
But isn't that Shankara's whole point about Maya? The influence of time and space changes the flow. A clear mountain spring is very different from the muddy delta water that reaches the sea.
It is different, but for Vyasa, that difference is just in the usage of the word, not in its actual existence. And this brings them to this moment of incredible synthesis in the sources.
The Brahma Sutra aphorisms of existence.
Yes, this matrix of being and doing. This is the aha moment for anyone trying to grasp this, because it grounds these huge concepts in real human experience.
It's the life science they were debating, so let's walk through it. What's the first state?
The first state. When you have more being but less doing, that is called pleasure or kama.
Okay, why pleasure? What's the logic there?
Because pleasure kama is a kind of gratification that needs you to withdraw inward, a bit less doing, to really feel it. It's rooted in being, but it's still connected to some external desire or effort.
I see. So the inverse of that would be our typical modern life.
Exactly. When there is more doing, but less being, that state is called wealth, or Artha.
The daily grind.
The daily grind. Constant external action, chasing goals, managing things. It's a state dominated by activity, which can lead to a kind of, spiritual exhaustion if it's not balanced.
That makes perfect sense. So those are the two mixed states. What about the extremes?
The third state is when completely being takes over. That state is called moksha.
Pure consciousness, the destination.
Total absorption in the source, no action needed. And finally, the fourth state is when completely doing takes over. That is called dharma.
But not just any doing. This is the ultimate perfect action.
Yes. It's action that is completely free of ego. It is the source itself acting.
So with that whole matrix laid out, you can really see Vyasa's argument. All four of these states, kama, artha, dharma, moksha, they all just flow from the same source. They're just different balances of being and doing.
Right. And yet, Shankara is still persistent. He comes back to his main concern, Maya.
The gap.
The gap. He insists the flow does change depending on time and space, and that means there is a necessary gap between Brahman, the source, and Maya, its expression.
And Vyasa's response to this is almost urgent.
It is. He gives a very strong warning. He says if you accept even a tiny gap between Maya and Brahman, you create all these philosophical problems that you just can't solve with arguments.
Because you can't really grasp Maya as its own separate thing.
You can't. It isn't against Brahman. It's just the power of Brahman to appear as the world. He says the flow between them has no actual boundary. The difference is just in the words we use.
Which brings the whole argument to its breaking point.
The climax.
If Vyasa is right, if there is no gap, then dharma and moksha have to be one and the same.
That's the logical endpoint.
But if they're identical, then we have the biggest conundrum in spiritual history. Why do the scriptures, the shastras, and personal experience all insist that sometimes you have to drop dharma, renounce your duties to achieve moksha?
Exactly. The very act of renunciation implies they are different, critically different.
So how did they resolve this? This is where the whole conversation shifts.
It's the argument that changes everything. Vyasa introduces the idea of transmission through a living master.
A personality, how does that solve the problem?
He argues that the whole debate about dropping Dharma for moksha becomes, well, it becomes irrelevant when enlightenment is transmitted by a person in whom moksha and Dharma have already merged completely.
So the source of the conflict just dissolves. It's resolved in a living being who embodies the unity of both.
Precisely. If you're flowing with a master like that, you don't have to struggle with renouncing your duties. Why? Because the ultimate Dharma is expressing itself perfectly through them. Their action is liberation.
That's profound. It completely reframes the problem. It's not about an internal struggle between acting and not acting anymore.
It's about external alignment. Are you aligned with the source where both are already one?
And this argument, the source says, touching on this guru sentiment, this feeling of devotion, this is what made Shankara just relax.
Yes. He remembered his own guru, Govindapada, and he stopped arguing. The discussion was over.
What a beautiful resolution. It affirms Vyasa's ultimate unity, but it doesn't dismiss the reality of the separation that a seeker on the path feels.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, what this gives us is two powerful modes of transmission from that unified source. When the master uses words, you're grasping Dharma, the path, the method.
And when the master transmits energy, that silent presence, that direct experience, you're grasping moksha, the essence, the state of being itself.
And both streams, the words and the energy, come from the same unified body. They're meant to work together, not fight each other.
So this entire deep dive, this whole life science, it really just boils down to that balance between being and doing.
And how that fundamental split between bliss and abundance, Maya and Brahman, is ultimately resolved in the living embodiment of the truth.
And the sources leave us with a really provocative question that comes right out of this debate. If the master is the source of both Dharma and moksha and transmits both at the same time, who receives which?
That's the question. Does the master transmit only Dharma, the path, and then the student has to walk it to find moksha on their own?
Or is it the other way? Does the master transmit only moksha, the pure state, which then naturally starts to express as right action, as Dharma?